It's going to record. Okay. Thank you and welcome for joining us at the Morph Leadership Edge workshop. I'm John.
Hello, John.
And then joining me in Brunei is Jacqueline. So thank you guys for joining us. This is going to be an hour and a half of a workshop. We're going to have a lot of content. So I guess to save a little bit of time, we wish to know you a little bit more, but for the interest of time, we probably won't ask everyone to introduce ourselves, but we want you to feel free to jump in and ask us questions as we go along. This will be a little bit of a one-way, kind of sharing information with you, but at some point I might pause and see if there are any questions from you, or I'm gonna ask you questions. Yeah, so we're gonna do it this way. We're going to introduce ourselves a little bit. Jacqueline, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jacqueline. My career started as an optometrist, and I spent a huge part of my early career days in the UK. I came back in 2011 to Brunei and got into golf retail. Now, I loved a lot of things about golf retail, apart from the fact that I worked right next to the golf course every day, which I loved. The other thing I loved was actually leading my team. I love watching them grow. I love watching them thrive. And I just love being the supportive force behind them. Fast forward 2023, I took up coach training. And since then, I've been supporting leaders across a few industries in Brunei. And I'm determined to do more to support them, to see how I can further, encourage them, help them grow in a way that's going to be supportive towards our vision in 2035, the Wawasan 2035. So here we are today, John and I, we're here to see how we can further support you in your leadership journeys. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the 1.5 hours that we have got dedicated for you today.
Yeah, Jacqueline is my beloved co-facilitator and partner, and we've been joining forces since Jacqueline came for the Coactive coaching training and leadership circle certification a couple of years ago in Hong Kong. Yeah, so I'm very honored to work with Jacqueline on this project. I'm John Sito. I'm based in Hong Kong. I'm originally from Brunei. Born and raised in Brunei, and I lived in Shanghai for 10 years, and now in Hong Kong for 7 years. So I left Brunei 17 years already, but I still call Brunei home. I'm a certified professional coactive coach and then also certified coach as well. I teach coactive coaching since 2018, and I've been a facilitator for over 20 years. But for one-on-one coaching and executive coaching, kind of started in 2015 with coactive coaching and also certified with the leadership circle. And since then, I've coached thousands of leaders through one-on-one coaching and teams to work through their own leadership. I think being a coach for me is really sacred. Every day I see people transform in front of me, either through the leadership circle or through whatever coaching we do. And that's really the fulfillment that I get as a coach. And many of you are coaches, you know exactly what I mean. When you see the person in front of you transform, that is most fulfilling. And with that vision and with that, we hope to bring this back to Brunei, to get more Bruneian coaches to, or Bruneian leaders to join us. Yeah, I know most of you are from Brunei, and some of you are joining us from Singapore or elsewhere. So today's content, we're going to have a little bit of a twist about the scenario in Brunei. And those of you who are joining us from elsewhere, you're also welcome to, of course, join in the conversation with us. This conversation started with us talking about the Wawasan 2035. Yeah. So those of you who are in Brunei, you've probably heard of this like probably every day, or I don't know how frequently you hear about Wawasan 2035. As we're looking at it, we look at goal number 3, which is to create a dynamic and sustainable economy. Brunei's economy has been reliant on oil and gas for the last 100 years, maybe less. Yeah. And we all know that the diversity of our economy is really important. But we just don't know how. There might be progress here and there. But at this point of time, with the geopolitical environment happening around us and the outlook on energy resource, we really have to diversify. And we know that Brunei leaders are finding ways to say, hey, how do we diversify? What do we do? And we hope to create that conversation with leaders to support the Wawasan 2035 goal. Jacqueline, you've been living in Brunei all your life, and I've been away for so long. What do you have to add about the vision?
I see so much potential in Brunei. I really do see a lot of potential in Brunei. So this is where we come in as coaches, as leaders, to see how we can, create the conversation. I think everything starts from a conversation, to see how we can all work together, collaborate, to work towards a brighter future for all of us. We may not see results straight away. We cannot expect result to happen in a month's time, in a year's time. But what we can do right now is we can start planting seeds. We can start planting seeds. The seed will bloom into a big, huge tree that one day I may not be here to sit under, fruits that I may not be able to enjoy, but I'm more than happy to start planting the seeds right now. Yeah, so that our future generation can enjoy the fruits of our labor. Yeah.
2035 is only 10 years away. Yeah, so we will definitely be seeing that happen. I don't know about you, Jacqueline, but I will look exactly the same in 2035.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. We had this conversation in Brunei where we brought the Leadership Circle workshop back to Brunei a couple of years ago. And this was a really important conversation to have. So we want to do this again and bring it back to Brunei. So we want to frame today's hour and a half a little bit. The Morph Leadership Edge is anchored on the Leadership Circle profile. I know, Anne, you're taking the certification next week, and some of you may have heard of it or a little bit curious about what it is. We're gonna spend most of the time talking about what it is and how it looks like, and talk about how it actually boosts leadership effectiveness. And we welcome questions from you on how to use it and how we've helped coaches on it. Yeah. So that's how we're going to frame this hour and a half, and we'll also answer the question: how does this impact leadership performance, leadership effectiveness, and business performance? We'll answer that question. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about the workshop that we intend to bring back to Brunei. So, VUCA, I think all of us, most of us have heard this term. If we look back the last 5 years since COVID happened, the whole world has been like churning like a washing machine. The last few months, we saw the US tariffs happening. I was leading a team coaching in Guangzhou, near Guangzhou, Zhongshan. And it was the beginning of the tariffs. And my clients in front of me, they were so into it. They were like, oh my goodness, tariffs are gonna hit us. And it's gonna create chaos in the work that we do. So all that is really happening. The volatility, the uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, that's really happening, and it's real. It's staring right in our faces. The past 50 years ago, we probably lived in a more stable, certain, simple, and clear environment. But the complexity of the entire world has increased so much in the last 5 years, and every year it's increasing exponentially. So to say that we're living in the VUCA world is a little bit of an understatement. That's a new term. It's not VUCA anymore. It's BANI. If you've heard of BANI as brittle, A for something, and for something, and I for something. So someone coined a new term. It's VUCA 2.0. It's called BANI. So in short, the complexity of our environment or the context that we live in is calling us to have a more complex mindset. So the demand on the complexity of the mind is increasing. And at the self-authoring stage, I'll talk about the complexity of self in just a bit. But just know that it's like a stages of adult development. So in short, the VUCA will expects us to live or to operate in a self-authoring world. But unfortunately, most leaders today are still living in the socialized mindset. Based on research, roughly 70% of leaders are living in the socialized mind, which is the current consciousness threshold. And this socialized mind can only help us if we live in a stable world. Unfortunately, that is not the case. So the gap between the complexity of the self and complexity of mind, this poses as a huge developmental challenge for leaders today. It doesn't matter where you live in, whether you live in Brunei or Singapore or Hong Kong or anywhere else. This is really the case. This developmental challenge, and for the past 10 years, I've been using the leadership circle to bridge this gap between the socialized mind and self-authoring mind. I said earlier, I got certified in 2015, and till date, and still counting, I've coached over 600 leaders using the leadership circle profile, and continuously coaching them through their own journey of transformation. And I know this works, and I've experienced it myself for the last 10 years, and I see it working magic on myself. And this is what we're gonna share with you today. I'll just pause here and see if there are any thoughts or questions or any additions to this. Thank you, Jerry. BANI stands for brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. If you are familiar with Robert Keegan's work, you probably heard of the 5 stages of adult development according to Robert Keegan. And in the market, there are other leadership developmental framework. What we're looking at today is the one by Bob Keegan. There are others by Susan Cook-Reuters, Tolbert, or Fallon that are all mapping where we are in our stage of development, the complexity of the mind, and how well we hold the mind. For the sake of today's workshop, we'll refer to Bob Keegan's 5 stages. The egocentric mind is one where that says my world revolves around me. I am my world, and I'm in the center of the world. So my ego speaks for myself. If we look at adolescents today, teenagers, that's usually where egocentric mind kind of stays. Yeah. And as we get older and we join the workforce, we may start becoming socialized. So meaning to say, when we start working in the workplace, we look at our bosses and we say, I got to be in the good books of my boss. I have clients. What if my clients don't like me? Or I have to push for results to get things done. So our mindset moves from egocentric, which is I-oriented, to I need to be. I need to be so and so. That's the socialized mind. The socialized mind is anchored in fear. I need to be perfect in order for me to survive, or in order for me to be. And roughly 70 to 80% of leaders today live in a socialized mind. If we're able to come to terms with our internal fear, we may be able to move to transcend to the creative. Creative mindset, or the creative or self-authoring mind, comes from values and purpose. I am clear on what is the purpose or why I'm here doing this work. What is my value system? I am not my fear, but I live to create the purpose around me. I'm a purposeful leader. I relate with my team. I want them to grow with me, and I achieve results for the sake of the bigger good. And that's the mindset of the creative. Even the self-authoring mind may not be sufficient if we move into more complex situations around us. If we look at leaders who have kind of stepped out a little bit, I'm talking about leaders like Bill Gates, or that sort of leader. They've moved to a more self-transforming mind, meaning to say they're able to pull themselves up from systems and being able to see how complex systems correlate or interlink with one another. So if we talk about leaders like Bill Gates, they're able to look at complex systems and then zoom in and recreate or readjust some complex systems so that these complex systems are able to move or operate in sync with one another. So they're not only coming from the I mindset, but they're coming from the bigger mindset, the we mindset, and how the systems integrate with each other. So we call that integral mindset. Roughly only 5% of leaders today work in the self-transforming mind. In a unitive mindset, that is less than 1% of leaders live in a unitive mind. And when we talk about unitive mind, it's touching along the lines of more metaphysical sense and more spiritual sense. So people who are able to see the human race as one collective, one unitive, and being able to see the entire universe and the whole complexity of the universe, and being able to see, I am part of the universe. The universe is me. I am one with all. I know it sounds a little bit going to the esoteric with the unitive, and we don't have to go there today. Just knowing that the unitive mindset is present, and less than 1% of population live in unitive, but the levels below are what we're talking about. So the call for leaders to transcend from the egocentric to the reactive to the creative to the integral, that is the work that we're doing today. Yeah, I'm going to pause here a little bit and see what thoughts and questions there may be. This stages of development in the coaching world, we call this the vertical development. So many of you may be familiar with the horizontal development, meaning to say, I need to have certain skills, I need to have communication skills, I need to have negotiation skills in order for me to perform my work. That's great. Those are what we call horizontal development. And we need that at any level. Even the reactive and creative and even integral, we need that horizontal development. What we're pointing today here is a vertical development. So an upgrade of our operating system. So for example, the computer in front of you, you may add additional applications on your computer, and that's the horizontal development. But for your computer to perform at a higher level, you need to upgrade it to a higher operating system. Yeah. So really a systemic upgrade. And that's what we're talking about in terms of our human development mind. We're seeking to upgrade our internal operating system so we operate at a higher structure. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the metaphor that I want to bring.
John, can you explain a little bit more on the integral?
Yeah. Yeah, so the integral, as you see integral, why we call it integral is because it's integrating the fear and the reactive, all the reactive tendency in the reactive, and then integrating with our values and purpose in the creative. So the integral leader is not pushing away the reactive. The integral leader doesn't say the reactive is bad, but understands that the reactive is also an aspect of myself. I may also be reactive, because of the complexity of my circumstance. And at the same time, I come from creative. So the integral leader is able to move upwards to the creative and then downwards to the reactive, because there are gifts in the reactive, and if we use it from an integral mindset, those gifts can help us become even more effective. But if we are constantly operating on the reactive mindset, those gifts become liabilities because it's overused strength. So back to the integral, it's really integrating the reactive and the creative. And then when we do that, our complexity of our mind increases. So I use Bill Gates as an example because I think over the years, since the 90s, we have seen Bill Gates and even Steve Jobs operating as reactive leaders. As they created the startups called Microsoft back in the day, startup. We saw them as reactive leaders. And then as the company grew bigger, they may have moved to the creative. What we see as Bill Gates today, he's really moved into integral. So stepping away from the daily operations of work and operate on a more global scale. Yeah. So that's a little bit about integral. But for the work of the leadership circle, we concentrate a little bit more on the reactive and creative, because that's the major shift that we have. Because 80% or more than 80% of the population are still in the reactive creative shift. And that's where we're looking at. The two fundamentals of the mind structure, which is the reactive tendency and the creative competency. Like I said, the reactive tendency is based on our inherent fear, whereas the creative competency is based on our value, our purpose, and what we are innately good at. If you two structures of our mind. The left-hand side is the reactive structure, which is anxiety containing. I have fear, but I'm not aware of my fear. I'll give you a scenario that kind of illustrates a little bit. Take, for example, a sales manager. We all know sales managers, and at some point in our careers, we're probably sales managers ourselves. It's 1st of December of the year. So the sales director comes in and say, "Oi, sales manager, your results are 20% below target. You have 1 month, I don't care what you do. You do cold calls, you beg, I don't care. You hit your sales target by the end of the month." Sounds familiar? I think we've heard that in one way or another. So in the reactive structure, this is how the sales manager will operate. The problem gets big because my boss is shouting down my throat and say, "Get your numbers in." If I don't get my numbers in, I will not get my bonus. If I don't get my bonus, my wife will kick me out of my house. And if she kicks me out of my house, I will have to live on the streets and I am nothing. That's the internal fear that's working. Call it saboteur, call it fear, call it whatever you want. That's real for many of us. And for some of us, that fear actually gives us health issues, mental problems. I've seen my clients getting overweight because of that internal fear. It may be real because my boss is shouting at me, but most of the time, it is what we tell ourselves inside in our operating system. So I react to it. To react to it, I shove it down my team members. I get them to overtime to get the sales numbers in. I push them harder. I get them to work faster. A week later, our numbers go up. Okay. Problem's not so big anymore. So my fear reduces, my reaction reduces. Yeah. But you know what? We still have 1 week to go, and we're still 2% below. The problem gets big again. My fear gets even bigger. My reaction gets bigger. What we see in such a pattern is an oscillating curve. When problem arises, our fear and reaction increase. I have to do something to contain that fear. But when the problem goes away, I go down. I relax and problem goes away. So the result in turn, in time, goes like an oscillating loop as such. And if we look at our performance over the years, our own performance, my performance as a salesperson, as a leader, whatever, I see this all the time when I'm in the reacting stage. COVID hit in 2020. And I think for most of us who are entrepreneurs at that time, this is real for us. Oh my goodness, by April 2020, all my face-to-face workshops have all canceled. And I look at my calendar, it's blank. I'm like, I need to do something. I need to shoot more videos. I have to do more marketing. Otherwise, I will not have money to feed myself. I fell into that reactive loop. And at some point, I have to tell myself, wait, what is my bigger purpose? Why am I a coach? Why do I do what I do? Is it for the money? Is it in order for me to survive? Yeah. My mom reminded me, if I can't make it in Hong Kong, I can always go back to Brunei. So then I landed on my purpose. I asked myself, what is the vision I'm trying to create? And if I stay with that purpose and vision, how does it fuel my passion? When my passion increases, it's not about the money. It's not about the performance anymore. It's about something bigger than myself. And when that passion arises, the action comes. And it's a very, very funny thing. When I came from my creative, one-on-one clients just dropped, like, just came to my vicinity. Like, I don't even need to do marketing. People just found me one way or another. Call it the law of attraction, call it my working with the energetic field or synchronicity, call whatever you want to call it. But when I realize I come from purpose and vision, clients get attracted to us. And when that happens, it's potential unleashing. The purpose gets bigger, the passion gets bigger, the action becomes stronger. And over time, it's an upward trend in performance. I see this not only in myself, but also in my clients. When they come more from purpose and vision, they seem to have extra energy to do more than they can. The reactive mindset comes from, I need to work faster and harder to get the results in. The creative mindset comes from, what is the purpose and what is my action to support that purpose. And when I really come from my internal, from the leadership inside out, the outcomes change. And this is the two structures of mind that most of us oscillate. Even reactive leaders also have purpose and vision. But we reactive leaders or socialized mind leaders come from the anxiety containing mind frame more often than the creative mindset. So we often oscillate between the two. And the practice here is to stay in the creative. Again, I'll pause here for a minute and see any thoughts or questions.
John, basically, I can see myself in this too as well.
Yeah. Tell us more. How does your reactive look like?
You know, when there's like, especially at work, when the workload and the pressure, then I was like feeling anxiety and overwhelming, and the fear kicks in. So that is work. But then I'm also passionate in terms of coaching. And if I were to see myself in the creating, whatever I do is not because of the money, but it's more of how I want to share with the people, whoever can resonate and probably can hope that they can feel lighter or
Yeah. Juliana, I noticed when you were talking about your at work, your voice constricted. Like almost you were like that. And you probably had a somatic experience like a physical experience. when you're talking about your reactive. Maybe it was your clients or your boss at the back of your mind just screaming at you. I'm sensing that constriction. But when you talk about your purpose, your voice open up. Yeah, do you recognize that?
Mm. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing your example. This is so real, the reactive and the creative. When we work with leaders and point out to the reactive, they're like, oh my goodness, like this has been in my, like this is how I operate. No wonder
Yeah.
I'm off balance. No wonder I don't have a work-life balance. No wonder I'm putting on weight because I binge eat. You know, the amount of anxiety that I have, like, yeah. But when I come from purpose and like, okay, why am I here? Why am I leading the sales team? Why am I leading this operations team? Why am I leading this company? What is the bigger outcome that we are trying to create together? When we come from there, it's a whole different mindset. And we all have this. The reactive mindset has 3 main tendencies. Karen Horney has done a lot of work on the reactive mindset or the socialized mind. The 3 tendencies here are complying, protecting, and controlling. Complying, the mindset here is I need to be liked by others. I need my boss to like me. I need my team to support me, to love me, to accept me. Protecting, I need to be seen as right. I need others to adopt my ideas because I am superior. My ideas and my thoughts are superior. So I'm arrogant, I'm distant, and I'm critical of others because it doesn't fit my logical point of view. My ideas become me. Protecting. Controlling mindset. I need to be perfect. I need to push for results. I need to hit my KPI. If not 100%, it will be 110 or 120%. If I don't exert my power, if I don't exert my ability, who am I? My identity becomes my success. All my success becomes my identity. That is me. I am not a failure. So I'm autocratic. I'm ambitious. I drive myself, and I need to be perfect. Control. All of us, we have these 3 reactive structure within us. Oh, by the way, we know that some of you have done the self-assessment profile. So if you have completed self-assessment profile, that's a good time to pull it out. And the self-assessment here is only part of the story. So it's only your perception of yourself. So you get to see how high or how high you score yourself in complying, protecting, or controlling. Yeah. When you do the 360, meaning you get your boss, your boss's boss, your direct reports to give you feedback, you get the 360 view. So then you get to see how others perceive you in terms of your reactive or your creative. Yeah. So in short, the 3 reactive tendencies are complying, protecting, and controlling. We call it creative competencies instead of tendency, because when we come from creative, it is leadership from the inside out. Based on our research, the creative competencies are positively correlated to leadership effectiveness, whereas the reactive that we talked about earlier is they are negatively correlated to leadership effectiveness. So the higher we score in creative, the higher we may score in leadership effectiveness, and the reverse is true for reactive. Yeah. Relating. It's okay if others don't like me. I genuinely care for my team. I deeply connect with them. I'm a team player with my stakeholders. I collaborate with them. I want my team and my stakeholders to grow with me. and I'm good in managing interpersonal conflict. That's relating. Self-aware. I have the ability to look within myself, to introspect. I lead selflessly. I have a good work-life balance. I am composed, and I continuously learn to become a better version of myself. Authenticity. I don't need to wear a mask. I am who I am. My values and my behaviors are in line. I dare to speak the truth, even though it's hard for others to take it. Systems awareness. I can see the systems beyond my my job scope. I can see how the tariffs will affect the global economy and how that in turn affect my company and our team. And I can see how to move and navigate through this complexity around us. And we think systemically, we think long-term rather than short-term profit. Finally, achieving. It's not just about my KPI. It's about strategic focus or the purpose that we play in. Why are we here? Why do we exist as a company in this market? And what are we trying to do in this market? What are we trying to create in this market? And how do we achieve results together and doing so decisively? Yeah. So it's moving from I need to hit my KPI to what's the bigger game here. Creative is sometimes called leadership from the inside out. If I bring back to the context of Brunei, this is what we need. Wawasan 2035 is not just a tagline that we just repeat. It is really us stepping into our bigger game, thinking about what we're trying to create for our future generations. If we don't start the work today, if we don't start in Jacqueline's words, if we don't start planting seeds or working the fields, our future generation will not have oil to live on anymore. What are we creating for them? So it's for the sake of something bigger than me. And that's really calling for creative leadership. Just pause here and see if Jacqueline or anyone has anything to add.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Hi, John. If I could just ask, like, what would be the, how do I articulate this? How would you see the environment, like the work environment that you're in, impacting this kind of assessment? Or, you know, like perhaps, yeah, how much of it is due to context? Like, say, for example, if you're working under, in an environment or under a leader who is highly reactive,
Yes.
would that kind of bring out those tendencies in you or kind of amplify that? Or yeah, how do you see that working?
Nice. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, the context play a huge role in how we may show up as reactive and creative. Because I am both. I am both reactive and creative at the same time. Maybe at a certain stage of development, my reactive may be stronger. At a later stage of development, maybe my creative is stronger. So and especially if I'm in transition, if I'm like right in the middle of both, and I join a company or a team that is highly, highly reactive, for sure it's going to boost up my reactive, because that's how the system operates around me, and I am part of the system. So in that case, my reactive gets boosted up. And that's the internal work. So if we're able to start seeing the complexity of the context around me and then be able to see it from a different lens and say, hey, wow, what a reactive environment that I operate in. But you know what? I'm a leader. I am leading from the inside out and not outside in. So even though our clients are demanding, my boss is reactive, I can stay above the water. I can turn this around because it's about the bigger good. So if we stay in this mind frame and we can stay here, then that's the shift that we can see. So Emma, going back to your question, when I work with leaders, and sometimes I've seen them do their profile, the 360 profile over the span of like 2 years. So some of them have like 3 profiles. And I've seen one leader who was from creative to another creative profile. And the third profile that I saw, she regressed back to reactive. And I asked her, what happened? And she's like, well, the environment got really challenging and it got better of me. Yeah. And instead of judging her and say, oh, you see, you got becoming reactive, we kind of pause and kind of ask, what is the lesson behind here? So you got thrown a little bit off balance by the context. What are you really learning here? Because it's not about the score, not just about the score. It's about how you're showing up as a leader day to day. Yeah. So the context has a huge impact to our structure, especially those who are in between the reactive and creative. And this reactive to creative shift is the hardest for anyone.
So if you were to have, say, for example, frequent or say frequent changes of bosses, that could have a big impact on the environment within the organization or department.
Oh yeah, yeah. So if you look at systems who are constantly changing, that are constantly changing, and I work with a few clients now, the system is continuously changing. Some clients say, oh, I have, over the span of the last 2 years, I have 5 bosses, different bosses, because it's changing so much. We recognize that, and I see you smiling there, Emma. That can impact, because the system may be overly reactive or it's shifting, and leaders have to react to that. One day I report to this line, tomorrow I report to that line. I gotta react to this. I can't come in every day and become and say I'm Zen. There's no way, because it's so complex. Yeah. In the midst of that complexity, if we're able to find our center, that's the key. And that's the constant practice. I can't change my system around me tomorrow. There's no way. But I can change how I see my system, how I perceive my own system. I can change this tomorrow. And when I change this from inside out, then I have an influence to the systems around me. Yeah. It sounds hard, and this is the work that we're committed to do. Yeah. So in our coaching, this is the work that we do when we work with them on one-on-one. After doing the leadership circle profile, we either get them to do group work together, or we do one-on-one follow-up coaching to help them see, what can I shift, what can I change, what new perspective can I have, how do I process this. A lot of the reactive tendency may come from childhood and early experiences. So in my childhood and early experience, maybe I'm drawn to the complying, and that can have an impact on my leadership. So as coaches, we sometimes look at what's happened in the past, not coaching the past, but bring back to the present. Check on how we're doing in time.
Good. We're 9:50 now.
Yeah, so we'll talk about leadership effectiveness. So some of you might be wondering, okay, so we spent half an hour talking about the reactive creative. How does it really impact leadership effectiveness, and how does it impact business results? Okay. So based on the research that Bob and Bill, I'll tell who Bob and Bill are later, they partner with a few institutions to determine where leaders are in their stage of development, and in turn linking it to leadership effectiveness. So based on our research, the correlation between leadership effectiveness and creative competency is 0.93. That's close to 1. So meaning to say, the higher you are in creative, actually it has a almost a 1 correlation that is not even highly strong. It's yeah, creative competency actually directly links to your leadership effectiveness, in other words. We see that the higher you score in your stage of development has the higher you score in leadership effectiveness. Sorry, I'm babbling here. Yeah. What do the leadership effectiveness question look like? When you're doing the assessment, some of you have done it. 5 questions out of the 129 are related to leadership effectiveness. So these are the 5 questions here. I'm satisfied with the quality of leadership that this leader provides. This leader is the kind of leader that others should aspire to become, okay, and so on. So out of these 5 questions, we determine what is your leadership effectiveness goal. And like I said earlier, it's almost a 1 correlation with creative competency. Then Bob and Bill said, okay, we know what creative is, we know what leadership effectiveness is. Now let's answer the question about business performance. So they created a survey with about 500 organizations, roughly 2,000 leaders in the study. And they asked them about their business performance. How are they performing in their business units today? That is based on 6 criteria: sales and revenue, market share, profitability, quality of services and products, new product development, and overall performance. So based on these 6 criteria, they created the business performance index. Okay, and they took this number and their leadership effectiveness goal and plotted out on this map here. So each dot here represents a result or a business leader. So the y-axis states the business performance index, which is the 6 criteria, based on the 6 criteria I talked about earlier. And the x-axis is the leadership effectiveness score out of 5. So if you notice here, there is an upward trend in the leadership. There's an upward trend, yeah, with a correlation of 0.61. And if those of you who are in statistical studies, you know that 0.61 is highly correlated, yeah, very strong correlation. And with this, they're like, okay, so how do their leadership circle profile look like? So they took the top 10% of business leaders, okay, and the bottom 10%. So based on their business performance, the top 10% and the bottom 10%. And like, okay, so how do they look like? The top 10%, their leadership circle profile looks like that. So I'll kind of pause here for a minute and let you notice. Well, what do you notice? The black line represents the sales goal, and the green shading represents the 360, the evaluator score. What do you notice in the top 10%? And I think you're speaking, but we can't hear you.
No, I think there's a higher scores on the creative half, but there are still scores on the reactive half, but lower.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you notice, the reactive is still present. It's like you said, it's still present, and roughly about 30th percentile. So we say that ideally we still need our reactive, but around the 10 to 30th percentile. So which means these highly performing leaders, they still retain the reactive and able to utilize the gifts of the reactive and not become overused strength or become liability. Yeah. Because if it gets any bigger, in fact, if you notice the driven score here is still high. So these high performing leaders, they still drive themselves at the expense of their balance goal. So the balance is here and the driven is here. So even for the top 10 percentile, there's still development here. But if you notice the creative, they are roughly around the 70th percentile for the average. Not to say that this is the ideal leader, but to give you an understanding of the high-performing leaders, the high-performing leaders, what does their reactive and creative look like? And if you look at their leadership effectiveness score, it's at 80 percentile, which is a really high score. Are you curious about the low-performing leaders? This is what they look like. What do you notice here?
A little more loaded on the reactive half.
Yeah. So it's almost flip, isn't it? The reactive now becomes roughly at the 70th percentile, and then the creative becomes at the 20th to 30th percentile. Interestingly, they rated themselves higher in the creative. So the low performing leaders, they have a higher view of themselves in the creative. Yeah. But in fact, their stakeholders experience them as more reactive.
Sorry, John, could you just repeat that last bit again?
Yeah. So what's
Thanks.
showing us is that the low performing leaders, they see themselves as more creative. Yeah, they rate themselves more creative. If you look at the self-score line, and the creative is higher. But their stakeholders experience them as more reactive. The green shading. So call it blind spot, call it internal work, all of the above. And when we have scores like that, there's a lot of opportunities for us to work with leaders on their scores. Like Emma, to your earlier question, it could be the context that they operate in, the situation that they're under, or it could be their stage of development. And whatever it is, we're as coaches, that's our work with them. If we put them side by side, it's fascinating. Some of you may ask, is it possible to shift from the left to the right? Highly possible. I've seen leaders who've done it. I've seen leaders who put in the work, the internal work, and shift from the left to the right in a matter of a few years. I have also seen leaders moving from the right to the left, meaning digressed in a matter of a few years. And sometimes that it could be a contextual change. They could be in a more complex environment. They may have been promoted and their portfolio became 100 times bigger. That could have been the case. Or there could be something going on in their family lives or their personal lives that may have impacted this change. So we often see this with a more compassionate point of view. This assessment is not here to determine or to assess you how good you are. And in fact, when we work with leaders, their bosses don't see the results. Only the coaches and the leader concerned get to see their results. So this is highly confidential, and we work with them so that they can show up better. Bit of theory base. So I was quoting some names earlier. And those of you who are familiar, who are in the leadership framework base, these are some of the theories that the leadership circle profile has been based on. Robert Fritz, Peter Senge, and Kiefer, they did a lot of work on the reactive and creative orientations. Cognitive psychology. There's also work on somatic experience. So Juliana, when I was pointing out to you your voice constricting and your voice opening up, there's a lot of work done behind that, behind rational emotive therapy, and also the somatic experience. I mentioned Karen Horney, who talked about the 3 reactive structure, the moving toward complying, moving against controlling, and moving away protecting. Some of you may be familiar with the Enneagram, and that's also showing up in the leadership circle. And you talked about you were sharing with us just before we started I just lost it. something competency. You were going to take it in Manila, and
Gallup strengths.
Gallup strength, yes, thank you. And if you look at Gallup strength, a lot of the competency in the creative are somewhat similar to the Gallup strengths. So leaders who have done the Gallup strength, when we do the leadership circle with them, they recognize that their strengths are showing up in the same place as well. Colbert, Keegan, Ken Wilber, Paul, Beck, Don Beck, Fowler, Kogorda, these gentlemen and ladies here, they have done a lot of work on stages of adult development. And that's really the framework behind the reactive, creative, and integral shift. Yeah, and a lot more. I had the privilege to meet Bob and Bill just last week. So I was in Portugal last week attending a Unitive Academy. Both leaders show up. So Bob Anderson is the founder and creator of the Leadership Circle framework. Bill is his business partner from the consulting with a strong consulting background. So literally last week I was with them too, and we had a deep dive into the integral. The books written here are Mastering Leadership for Practitioners and Scaling Leadership for Leaders. So often when we work with leaders, I would recommend them to read Scaling Leadership. Jacqueline, anything to add before we move forward?
No, I think we're good. We're good for time as well.
So we want to bring this back to Brunei. Jacqueline and I were so passionate about this work. We know that for sure. Bringing back to Brunei, it's the next step to be. And we started with our discussion on Wawasan 2035 and say, hey, what are we doing? How can we do our part to support this vision? We have 10 years to go, and this is really the right time to bring this in. So, and I've worked with several leaders back in Brunei on this already, and they were like, John, why are you hiding in Hong Kong? Why are you not coming back and sharing this with us? So this, in a way, is my commitment to bring this back home. So we are intending to create a retreat, a 3-day retreat in Brunei for Brunei leaders, starting with the leadership circle profile. So each leader will get their own profile assessment, one debrief, in-depth debrief session, and I think you just had your debrief session recently. Yes. And then follow-up coaching. And if it's okay with you, and you don't need to go into detail, what was your experience from the leadership circle profile debrief?
I think it was excellent. Interesting to see the theory reference to Enneagram, because I love Enneagram.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I had the degree for Enneagram, I think that what I said to my coach then was, I never felt so naked, totally exposed, Along the way, I've done quite a number of other psychometric tools, but I must say that only with my debrief with the leadership circle yesterday, I had that feeling of, oh, here I go again, feeling naked. I think what I really like about the leadership circle is that it gives the words, the frame, the labels, so that we can talk about it as a competency or as a value. And once we are able to name it, we can work on it. So it put a lot of things to perspective for me. No real big surprise, but it's insightful to be able to say, okay, here it is, and not just how I see myself, but how the people that I work closely with. And I think it provides the opportunity to create some kind of a development plan to be able to grow and get better.
Yeah, thank you. You remind me of my experience 10 years ago when I did my first profile. To say that I am, like, to the left-hand side, the reactive, it's almost an understatement. Some of my reactive tendency came out like, whoa, that's really high, my reactive. So 10 years ago, I was a reactive leader. But over the course of time, and I really work internally, I'm able to kind of flip it around to the creative. I don't want to say that, oh yeah, because I'm so good. That's actually because I really dedicate myself to do this work. And you talk about Enneagram. Some of you may have done other psychometric tests like the MBTI or other sorts. It kind of puts you with a label and say, okay, you're like that. And sometimes I go like, okay, so I am ENFP, and then what? So what does this mean? So with the leadership circle, it doesn't put you in a box. Even though you show as a reactive today, it doesn't mean that you are reactive. You're able to shift. You're able to push the dial and move the dial and move up to the creative if you choose to. Yes, you will have a tendency because it's also in your MBTI, your Enneagram is ingrained in here, and you can improve. You can be a better version of your Enneagram. You can be a better version of your MBTI, and that's the beauty of the leadership circle. I like what you said, and that you feel naked.
Totally exposed.
Yes. Yes, for lack of a better term, yes, that's
And I mean, that was the word that came to me then.
yes.
And that was the word that came to me. Oh no, there's this uncomfortable feeling again of how she was able to pinpoint certain things that made it. And it's really refreshing for me to be on the other side
Mhm.
as the person being coached. So I mean, even from the time Jack introduced it to me then, and I had my first debrief with her, there were already some insights. But I think yesterday's with Jennifer, who has years of experience as a psychologist, brought it into a much deeper dive.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I'm going for certification next week.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably when you come for certification, you go like, oh my goodness.
I know, I'm so excited about it,
Yeah.
So again, nothing surprising with my profile, but I think what was surprising was the intensity of it.
Mm.
I mean, I've always known I'm driven and all this stuff, but I think to be able to get the reference in terms of comparison to the global norms, that was useful because if not, then it's just relative. I mean, I know I've always been. I mean, looking at other tools, I know I'm talkative, but to know that I'm 95% talkative, that was a bit scary.
Oh yes. Yeah. When my arrogance was at 80th percentile, I'm like, whoa.
Whoa, yeah, come down to earth.
Yeah. And I'm not kidding. My arrogance is high. And so knowing that I'm higher than 80% of the global population in arrogance, I'm like, that's some perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too, and I thought that was really useful.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you for sharing, and I really appreciate your insight on how you experience it. And that's the experience we want to bring back to our leaders in Brunei. It calls for a lot of work from us. We can't keep operating in the same way and expect a different result. And that's the definition of insanity. Doing it the same way and expecting a different result. And I think in a way that's what leaders in Brunei are kind of facing. We're kind of like on a hamster wheel, and we expected the wheel to change, but no, we have to change. We have to step out from the wheel and see it differently. So we want to bring this perspective back to Brunei. So with this retreat, what we intend to do is to anchor with the leadership circle profile assessment. You get a one-on-one debrief from either Jacqueline or I. And in the 3-day retreat, these will be what we're going to cover. The creative competency, looking at your leadership strength, and also exploring your own reactive tendency. What's holding you back from your leadership effectiveness? We're opening up to senior leaders in Brunei, so you get to collaborate and work with other senior leaders. And Jacqueline and I, we keep hearing leaders asking us for coaching skills because it's so relevant in our environment today. Some of us here are coaches and we're coach trained. So we know what the benefits we bring to our leaders. And we want to spend a whole day giving you coaching skills so that you can use these tools to work with your teams. You will not be a certified coach by the end of the 3 day, but it will give you a taster on what it looks like to coach, how to ask powerful questions, listen deeply, and work with their own your team's reactive and creative. So we'll give you a full experience on coaching. And then after retreat, we are also offering you 2 follow-up coaching to enhance on your own, to work on your own leadership circle profile. So that's really a huge package, a debrief, an assessment, a debrief, 3 days of workshop, and 2 follow-up coaching. This is our target audience. Yeah, Brunei leaders who are making an impact, C-suites, MDs, directors, and entrepreneurs. Especially we see in the space of entrepreneurs today, because many of you guys who are entrepreneurs, you work in small or medium enterprises, and there may not be sufficient resources for you to get trained as a leader. So we want to really focus on you. So we're offering it to entrepreneurs as well. The key dates, we aim to have your profile debrief in early August. We will need at least 3 to 4 weeks before that to complete your assessments. So it will give us the whole month of July to set things up and then get your profile debrief in early August. We hope to run the workshop in Brunei on the 12th, 13th, and 14th of August this year. And then the follow-up sessions will take place in September. So these are the key dates. We will have a lot of fun, guys. Like, I don't know about you, but my coaching and Jackson's coaching is all about having fun. So these pictures, the one in the middle, I did this a few years ago in Hong Kong with a team of leaders, and we did that collective assessment. And they were having so much fun, laughing and crying at the same time. Like, imagine laughter and tears rolling in together at once. That's what we're experiencing. I did maybe 2 or 3 certifications in Hong Kong. So Jacqueline came to Hong Kong for our certification. And you probably see Michael in the certification next week in Singapore, and he came to Hong Kong to join me. Brought this back to Brunei a couple of years ago with Belief. So the bottom left corner, that's the leaders in Brunei. And last December, I did 2 certifications in Beijing and one in Korea as well. So I really bring this all over Asia Pacific, and now we want to bring this home. Yeah. Investment. So you guys are thinking, okay, so all these talk, how much is it going to be? We're going to give you a shocker. Jacqueline and I, we were contemplating on the price, and we were saying, like, what is the value that we bring into from around the world, and what value we want to bring to Brunei. And honestly, if we were to do this workshop in Hong Kong or Singapore, it would probably cost us 3 times this amount. And Jacqueline and I said, well, we're committed to work with leaders in Brunei. We want to bring the cost down for all of us. So your investment will be 1,490 Brunei dollars, which is equivalent to the Sing dollar. The deadline for registration is on the 23rd of June. And we commit to giving you the best experience possible. We're also committed to stay in to have our workshop at the Empire Hotel. And so to give you the full experience on this. Yeah. This price was not easy for Jacqueline and I to work on. And we do, and honestly and in full transparency, we are breaking our banks, and we need a high number for us to break even. Yeah. And we're committed to doing so. Yeah. We're still playing with the numbers. This is our pilot, and by bringing this in, and maybe the next round we may adjust the price a little bit, but we're still uncertain about the price. We're still kind of playing in with it. So this is the investment for this time. Yeah. Jacqueline is taking care of our registrations. So if you're interested and then you say I want to be in, then give Jacqueline a holler. Yeah. And then stay in touch with us. So if you take a screenshot, here are my contact and Jacqueline's contact. We're on LinkedIn. You can WhatsApp us on or send us an email.
Yes, do get in touch with us. We're here to support you. We're making this very accessible. Our contact details are here. I'm based in Brunei. Always happy to come for a coffee chat. You know, if you have any questions, if you need any further clarifications about the retreat, or even about your own leadership circle assessment. So for those of you who've done your self-assessment, we're offering you a complimentary debrief. Get in touch with me. We'll sit down together for an hour and a half, and that's where I'll walk you through your leadership circle profile, your self-assessment, go through the numbers and what they mean, and identify certain areas where you can develop. Yeah. So yeah, give me a shout.
And what Jacqueline offered, that is priceless. So that hour debrief from your self-assessment, that is really you're paying nothing for a very senior coach level. So take this offer up. How are we doing in time? We've got a bit of time. Stop sharing here and see if there are any questions or thoughts. Emma, I see you contemplating. You're deep in thought. What are you thinking, Emma?
Me?
Yes.
I don't know if it's so much of a question, but I'm thinking like, I mean, honestly, I can see like there's a lot of potential impact. This is actually so needed. It could really, really help people. What I'm thinking is this requires a willingness from people to get a bit vulnerable and face some uncomfortable emotions, uncomfortable truths about themselves, yeah, that's something that could be kind of new for a lot of people, right? So maybe what's really kind of important to keep in mind is the potential outcome, like what are the gains from it, right? From doing that, because it's not fun work. Well, I mean, some people find it fun, but I suppose it's generally not considered fun work, right? So, but it's very impactful work. So yeah, it's, I don't know, it's not so much of a question, but it's just, yeah, where my mind's at, thinking that hopefully these people will be able to see the benefit in doing that, what, sort of like what am I trying to say? Yeah, you sort of put in the work now, but then the gains that you get out of it are so worth it. But if that could be kind of a bit clearer up front, I guess maybe it helps to kind of entice some people to come in and sign up. Yeah.
Yeah. In Anne's word, prepare to get naked with your coaches.
Yeah.
Totally. But in a nice way, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And I've shown up like that, vulnerable with my coach as well. And I've had the honor to witness a lot of vulnerability in front of me. And sometimes I have like senior guys in their 40s and their 50s, and they show up with their profile and they go like, whoa, that's a lot. That's like I've never spoken to my wife or shared this with my wife or my husband, and I'm sharing this with you on my profile. Like, I didn't even think of this happen to myself and the impact of my childhood having on me today. And I'm prepared to do this work with you.
I think when you allow yourself to kind of be in those sort of vulnerable situations, there's so much potential for growth. Yeah, so no, I fully support it. I think it's a great tool. It looks like a really good tool, really impactful.
Yeah.
I hope you get all the I hope you get people signing up for it, because I think there's a lot of good that can come from it.
Thank you, Emma.
I think this reminds me of the quote that I just read a couple of weeks ago, and it says something along the lines of the cave that you fear to walk in lies the treasure you seek.
Yeah.
Wow, so profound. And that's so true. The cave that that represents the dragon or whatever that might be in there, and we're sometimes apprehensive in going there, but that can offer so much treasure.
Mm.
And you know what? Our team members, our stakeholders don't expect any less from us.
Mm.
They want us to be vulnerable. They want us to do the work. So we're not doing the work for ourselves, but we're actually doing the work for them. Our country, our systems around us expect us to grow. They want us to grow like yesterday. So we're not doing the work for ourselves, but we're doing the work for them.
And sometimes I think as leaders, the people that we lead will see us as being above them, you know, but actually we're not. We're no longer, we're not in front of them. We're not, you know, far ahead. We're actually alongside them. This is a journey that we all walk together. You know, if we were to realize this vision that we have set for ourselves in 10 years' time. Yeah.
Any other questions from the rest of the group? Because most of you have your cameras off, so I know that you're there. I assume that you're there. So if you have questions, just shout out loud. Jacqueline and I will be sharing more information on the retreat in the next couple of weeks. So the deadline for registration is on the 23rd of June, and we hope to get most of you in, or many of you in. We will record this session and we'll be sending out to some of you. So if you want a recording, just let us know and we'll do that. Yeah. So I think we've come to the end. I'm going to stop recording.